Hello, everyone, and welcome to our third community webinar in our series of webinars. Remember that this is all streamed to YouTube, so if you have any questions during the team's presentation, post them in the chat, and they will be answered at the end of their presentation.
Today, we have Sharon Tiger Tech's Team Black from Sharon, Pennsylvania, USA.
Hi, we are Tiger Tech's Team Black from Sharon, Pennsylvania. I'm Kate, and this is my third year on the team. The rest of the team is going to take a moment to introduce themselves before we get started.
Hi, I'm Ian. This is my third year on the team. Hello, I'm Tony. This is my second year on the team.
Hi, I'm Bodie. This is my second year on the team.
Hi, I'm Lucas. I've been on the team for 2 years.
Hi, I'm Keegan. This is my fourth year on the team.
Hi, I'm Warren. This is my third year on the team.
Hi, I'm Vincent, and this is my first year on the team.
We are so glad that you are here with us today to hear about how to develop a robot strategy. Before we get started, here's a little bit about us. Over the past few years, our team has had the opportunity to compete in several international events. During this past season, we were the champions of Southwest Pennsylvania and were planning on going to World Festival in Detroit until COVID-19 hit. 2 years ago, with the Into Orbit season, Team Black was Southwest Pennsylvania's second place Champions Award recipient. We then advanced to the North American Open at Legoland, California, where we also received the second place Champions Award. We hope today that teams are able to take away some tips that we have learned over the years to help with planning out their robot strategy for the replay season. Our first tip for you is to really know the challenge. You should read the replay robot game rulebook and know the rules. It is important that you're comfortable with the field setup, the mission model details, the rules, and your path diagram. For veteran teams, there have been some rule changes this year, so it is important that you sit down with your team and go over what rules have changed, what they've changed to, and what new rules have been added. One rule that's changed is that the shape and use of home is now related to launching. So I'm going to come over to the robot table to further explain this rule change. So this quarter circle that is launched has no height limit this year. So when you're launching your robot, there is no ceiling. Everything that you're taking onto the mission field has to fit inside of launch. So your robot, the attachments, anything you're taking has to be inside this quarter circle. When your robot comes back though, this year, launch becomes a part of home. So you have all of this space to transition and change the attachments on your robot. Another rule that's changed is that jigs can extend all the way to the west wall. So with the addition to home last year, you had to line your jigs up with launch, which was inconsistent and pretty hard to do when you're transitioning. So this year, you're allowed to extend your jigs all the way to the west wall, which will give you more accuracy and precision when launching your robot. I'm going to come back over to the computer to finish what rules have changed. The LEGO Education Spike Prime Robotics platform is now available and allowed. So if you're a team with a Spike Prime robot and you want to use it, go ahead and do so because they are allowed in competition this year. The rule about combining things with mission models, it is back and now based on time instead of gravity. The launch height limit is removed, but don't abuse this rule by making tall robots or the ceiling will be back next year. There is a height limit for inspection, but I'll get to that a little bit later. The requirement for things to be motionless before launch is gone. The words transport, supported, and independent are gone. So what that means is last year there was a tree and you had to stack blocks in the tree, but those blocks had to be independent and supported only by the tree. So that meant you couldn't build a structure or anything around them to stabilize them. This year though, those words are gone, so you can be as creative as you want, and if you need to stabilize or support something, you can. And finally, the stranded cargo rule is now easier to follow and apply. So in years in the past, if you lost something out of launch or home, you just completely lost the object. But this year, instead of losing the object, you lose a precision token, which are worth points in the end, but it's better than losing the object altogether. This is just an illustration of launch and home, and this is in the robot game rulebook. So if you need to look deeper into the rules on this, you can actually look in there. And this is the equipment inspection bonus. So I'm going to come back over to the robot table and show you these inspection areas. I'm coming back over to the robot table to actually show these areas. All of your equipment, your robot, your attachments, your jigs, 5 points at the beginning of a launch. There is a height limit, though, of inspection areas. If you can't fit it in the small, you have to fit all of your stuff in the large. The only difference is you don't get the extra 25 points. So I'm going to come back over to the computer and keep explaining. So last but not least, you should be sure that your mission models are built and set up correctly. This is crucial because if you practice with a mission model built wrong and you go to a competition, your mission won't work. So actually this year, we had the mission, the step counter. And at first we thought this is a pretty easy mission because all you have to do is push in the bar. But the deeper we looked into this mission and the rules on it, we actually saw that if you pushed it too fast, it was supposed to jam. So we looked into the build instructions again and we rebuilt this mission model. So now if you push it too fast, it will jam. Another example on the slide is actually the weightlifter. So at first we put the pegs on the sides too high. But the deeper we looked in that mission and the rules on it, we actually saw that they were supposed to go lower down. But depending on what attachment we would have used for this mission, it might have messed up our launch at the tournament, and we would have lost points just because we didn't check our mission models. So it's just important that you do that. And last, just be sure that you watch the Replay Robot Game mission video and just know the challenge rules on how missions work.
So when every week there will be season updates for the robot game, and these updates are posted as needed by First, and these updates can clarify rules or they can change your strategy. For example, the shared mission was made more accessible for teams that are the only team in a match, so you can do it alone. And there was a clarification on the scoring for the dance mission. So we have these mission markers that are made by Arvin and Sanjay Seshan, and these mission markers help your team learn the names, point values, and descriptions of the missions. So on the front of the mission marker, there is the name of the mission. On the back, there's a description of the mission with the point values. Our teams used to use Post-it notes, however, these aren't as effective as these mission markers, so we decided to switch over to these mission markers, and it's helping our team learn the missions a lot better than we used to. On page 30 of the robot game rulebook, or in the robot engineering notebook, there is a map in the bottom left hand, and this map allows your team to learn your strategy and plan out your strategy. So if you have a strategy that your team is thinking of, you can just draw a line going out to wherever you think you want your robot to go to.
So another option for planning out a team's robot strategy is an interactive tool developed by Arvin and Sanjay Seshan. It is available on FLL tutorials, or you can download it from Google Play or the App Store as an app. So what I'm going to do is give you a brief overview on how this works. So as you can see up towards the top, there are different colors. What these different colors can allow you to do is to defer different launches that you have. So for example, in a practice launch that you might have, you might come out of launch and then you might go up to the slide. Then what you would do is you would take the box feature that can highlight missions, and then you would highlight the slide mission because it's included in that launch. Then what you might do in the practice is you might go under the uprights of the pull-up bar. So then what you would also do is you would highlight that. And then finally, what you might do is come back to launch. So as you can see, we use blue here. So if you went to another launch, you could use a different color and then continue on from there. So what you're going to see me use is the X. What the X does is it gets rid of all the changes you had made and everything you had written on the enlarged map. There's also an undo button and a redo button. In addition to that, there's an eraser button. So if you make a mistake when planning out your launch, you can erase so you don't have to exit out and lose all your progress. There is also a text box towards the top. What the text box can allow you to do is put what launch it is and then the missions that you complete in it. So then you can either screenshot this or save it to save your progress. Moving on to another thing that you can do for a strategy for playing out your launches is by using yarn and a poster board. So what this allows you to do is you can put it on a large poster board and use different colors of yarn, just like the strategy planner, but use different colors for it. What the Tiger Text had done in the past is we had gone in with the poster board and the yarn labeling all of our launches, and we had brought that into judging so we can show the judges what routes we were taking during the tournament. Moving on to the FLO replay scorer, it was created by Sanjay and Arvind Seshan. It's available on FLO tutorials, or you can download it from Google Play or the App Store as well as an app. So what we're going to do, for example, is we're going to see how many points our practice mission got. So you only want to put yes or move the sliders only if it fits what you did in that launch. So is the first figure off the slide under mission 3 slide? You click yes if it is. If the second figure is off the slide, you click yes. And as well as if it's in home or if it's held completely off the mat by the heavy tire and is touching nothing else. So you'd see we got 50 points for that. There's also under pull-up bar, mission 6, it says, has the robot passed completely through the pull-up bar's upright frame at any time? We would put yes because we had done that after the slide. And then towards the beginning of the match, if our team's equipment fit inside the small inspection area, you would click yes. That would be 25 advantage points. And then if there are 6 precision tokens left on the field, or however many there are, you would slide that slider up for how many are left. So that would be 60 precision points for a total of 150 points. You can also reset that to start again, or you can take a screenshot or save as a file. Also, there is a timer. There's a 2-minute and 30-second timer, which is how long each robot round is. So you can time down to see if your team's launches and transitions fit inside that. There's also a stopwatch that can be used for various things, such as timing transitions or separate launches.
When planning for your robot launches, there are many aspects to consider. So one of the aspects to consider are the difficulties of them. For example, driving under the pull-up bar would be considered an easier mission because you're simply just going under it. But where hanging on the pull-up bar would be considered a harder mission because you have to use the strength from the robot to use that. Teams also want to consider how many points the mission models are worth, and strategizing a team's goal is to achieve maximum points. Thus, it is important to consider this when choosing missions to complete. One way the team could go about planning robot launches is to use strategy worksheets that were developed by Arvind and Sanjay. These worksheets will help teams think about which missions will take more time based on their location, can missions be combined based on location, and which missions could be combined based on the attachment/design. So looking at some of those worksheets, you can see over here on one of the worksheets, you can gauge the difficulty of all the missions based on the location from launch, the navigation meaning how far away it is from launch / if the missions are clustered, how hard it is to navigate around them. Activation method just basically means the way that the mission is being completed. So if the mission needed to be pushed upwards, that'd be considered the activation method. Other factors can include the time it takes to get there, and of course the points. So as you move through all 3 of these worksheets, you can see that goes from the innovation project all the way to the precision tokens. Moving on to the next worksheet, it's just basically a strategy planner where you can map out your launch through here. Looking at the next one, this is a robot design page, which will just help you think about what features your robot should have and what sensors you need. Next one is a documentation page, which basically just will help you know your documentation and see where you've come. Looking at the next one is just pseudocode, which can help teammates, and there's another documentation page, and there's all sort of other documentation pages that you can look at. You're also going to be you also want to consider your robot launches and how realistically it is for you to complete them. So if you're a rookie team, you do not want to try every single mission because you end up getting frustrated and you might mess something up. We would recommend start off with 1 to 3 missions and then build upon those if you complete those. For the more advanced teams, grouping missions and trying to achieve maximum points for you should be your team's goal.
When thinking about any strategy, one needs to be flexible with it. Team members can individually plan the mission and then come together and combine their ideas. This could be at the start of the season or throughout the season. It is important that team members do not get attached with one way to complete something. For example, if a team member has worked on a mission attachment and it is not working correctly every time, then that team member needs to be open for other ideas and be willing to change it. Also, be willing to have an open mind to multiple ways to complete something. Multiple strategies could be attempted. It is important that teams are persistent and don't give up, but at the same time, teams need to be willing to adapt if a mission strategy is not working. If a robot launch is consistently not working, then be willing to change how it is approached. For example, you could try changing the route of the robot it is taking to make it quicker and easier. Try approaching a model a different way, such as a top, side, or bottom, or consider revising part of the attachment or the entire thing, and missions may need to be reordered so that others get done easier. When planning, it is important to be creative with your problem solving. It is important to not let the challenge rules limit what you can do. Use the rules, but be creative with your solution. Add features that add significant value. For example, one season, the objective was to place a slingshot above the target area. So instead of lifting it up and placing it on top of it, we actually put it on rollers and rolled it right above. And also, most importantly, think outside the box. Let your creativity take over.
It is important during the entire season that you document your strategy. You want to use pictures, sketches, and notes, as well as record your accomplishments, trials, improvements, and what you would probably do differently. This documentation is key to a good judging session. To learn more about this documentation, tune in next week on August 29th to hear about documenting your season at an in-depth level. When you go to a tournament, whether in person or virtual, your team will do a presentation on robot design. Remember to discuss your robot strategy the entire process during this time. On the slide, you see that there is a judging flowchart. Just be aware that judging this year is all combined and that robot design is in the middle of your time slot.
This year, it is important more than ever to know the rubric because it has changed quite a bit how it is organized. New this year are 5 categories instead of 9 in previous years. The categories are identify, create, iterate, and communicate. Robot strategy is located under the identify and category and also under the communicate. It is really important that teams document their strategy and also are sure that they include all team members in the process. The tips and tricks today that we shared are appropriate methods to go about planning for your robot strategy in FLO. We do not suggest watching videos, posts that other teams share how completed their replay missions. We feel that this limits their team's ability to create with their robot strategy. It is important to remember that this is a learning experience, so copying is just cheating yourself and your teammates. Some of the resources today are listed here, including using first challenge of documents and also worksheets. The replay sketcher scorer located at flotutorials.com. Please be sure to continue to tune in at noon every Saturday to help your season go along smoothly with tips and tricks by veteran teams. If you want to continue to learn more about the robot, be sure to tune in next week for robot design and documentation. If you have questions after today's presentation, you may ask now in the chat or contact us later using the email above. Check out our website, tigertexrobotics.com. You may also contact FRC Team 8027 using the contact information listed. Thank you for listening to our robot strategy presentation today. And at this time, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Okay, so it looks like we have a few questions in chat. Our first one is here. Does your team have a strategy to make sure that the team is aware of all the latest updates?
So what we do is we have someone on the team that checks weekly for updates. So if there is an update and something changes, they will let the rest of the team members know, and then we can make changes based on that update.
I think that's something that our team did as well. Sanjay, when we competed for Slug League, we had one person always check for updates, and at the meeting would tell what those updates were. I think that's a great idea for all teams. Awesome.
And to add on to that, always had that person check weekly, because there's always an update posted about every week.
I had a really quick question too. It was about some of the rule updates that were new for this year's season, and I know a lot of people and teams were confused about this one. So could you explain the rule about combining things with missions is back and now based on time instead of gravity?
So basically what that means is if you wanted to put, say you wanted to put blocks inside of a cube, those blocks had to be able to fall out of the cube using gravity. But now that rule has changed, and if you wanted to attach those blocks to the cube, you could, as long as you're able to detach them manually in less than a second.
Yeah, it's also important to understand that it's not very specific about the time that it would have to take to be able to pull that apart. And so teams should check with their area and their head referee locally to see how they're going to rule that situation. And while we're talking about rules, I just wanted to note one thing about the transport supported and independent are gone, which is this rule right here. While these words might have been removed from the rules, there are other wordings that you should be careful of. For example, you can't just put any equipment touching any mission model you want, because there are some rules. For example, MO9 tire flipped. It says for all scores, the tire needs to be resting on only the mat. So it can't be resting on anything else. Another example is MO3, the slide. It says is touching nothing else. So it's important for teams to read some of these rules. Just because the wording is gone doesn't mean that you can put any equipment you want touching any mission model.
Also, while we're still on the new rules page, Arvin, could you go back to that tab?
Which one?
The new rules.
Yep.
Yes. I do want to make sure everyone realizes that while the launch height limit is removed, there is still a height limit during the inspection area. You still have to be under 12 inches during inspection, but when you are launching your robot, you can be any height you want this year.
Okay, so let's get back to some of the questions from the audience now.
We have a question. How many runs do you recommend having?
We would recommend that it is based off your team's skill level. So if you're a rookie team, you probably only need one launch, considering that you're only doing 1 to 2 missions. But if you were, say, a more advanced team, you could do 3 or 4 launches if needed, because you're doing more missions.
I think it also is related to how many missions you can do in one launch as well. So maybe a rookie team will not be able to combine as many things into one run, so they might actually end up having more than one launch because they are splitting up their missions into more launches as well.
It is also very dependent on the season, because for some seasons, there might be a repetitive type of activation method, so you might end up doing 4 or 5 missions at once. However, another year you might decide to do only one mission at a time, one mission for or 2 missions run. So there is no definite number that we can say for the number of runs you recommend. It all depends on your robot, the season, and how experienced you are as a team to make attachments.
I did have one question. So I'm not sure if your team saw the guided mission for this year. And if you did, could you tell us all a little bit about the guided mission?
No, we did not see that this year.
Okay. Well, I think it's important. So I'm just going to show a little bit about the guided mission. I'll share my screen again. So this is the guided mission, and I'm on the Lego Education page right now. And so the guided mission for this year is the Basha Share mission, which is the shared mission for this year. And they have lesson plans, discussions. There's a video. I'll show the video as well, since I think that's important. They give you tips. There's the code here for solving the mission with comments. And then there's also this student material section, which is important as well. So I'll go ahead and open that. It tells you to modify your robot to add this little attachment to solve it. It has the code again. It also tells you where you need to place the robot in launch area to run the code. And now I'm going to play. So it teaches you how to line follow up to the mission and then raise the arm. And this will score you 25 points for solving this mission. And as you can see, as the tiger text we're mentioning, the robot no longer has to come all the way back into home area, all the way back into the black area back here, because the launch area is also considered part of home for this season.
While we are still on the topic of runs, I do have a question for you Tiger Tax. How do you decide which missions to combine into a single run to save time?
So our team decides the group missions based on how the missions are activated. So if there's a lot of pushing motions that are in a grouped area of missions, we make that into a launch. Or if there's a lot of like lifting, we put that into a launch.
That is a good strategy. Arvin and I did something similar when we competed in First Lego League Challenge.
Okay, let's see if we have any more questions in chat. So we have one here. How do you incorporate the info you generate from the planner and the scorer or any other tools that you use into your engineering notebook?
So what you might do with the strategy planner or the score is, if you can see that you're having a certain score and you might want to go higher because you can base goals around on how many points you're scoring. So what you might do is incorporate that info in. So you might add a mission in so you can document that because you need to get more points as a strategy. Or for the strategy planner, if you realize that the route might not be the best, you can just update that like before, like I had said, or do another one, and then you can also incorporate that into the documentation.
Well, while we're talking about the sketch planner, so here's the sketch planner again. I did want to mention one thing. So the Tiger Techs in their demonstration were using this free draw mode. So if you actually use the line feature, you can, when you draw your path, one, it will make a nice straight line, which is cool. But also, you notice this little text box shows up. And we added this for this year's season because we know a lot of teams are not able to meet in person because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So what this does is it tells you the actual length of the line you just drew on a real field, as well as the angle of that line. And so we thought that this would be a helpful tool for teams to be able to write out pseudocode and try and create a code for their missions without having to be physically there at a table, because they can see the distances and angles that they need to go to get to a certain location on the field.
Yeah, exactly. Also, Arvin, if you click the save button, and then you can save several strategies so that you can see your past plans and compare it to different ones. Arvin, try pressing save a couple times.
So now I've saved one here, and so if I get rid of that, go back here, and then do load save drawing, it'll be back.
This is an excellent way to keep track of your drawings.
I can also export it as a
strategy
and print it out and put in the engineering journal, as the question was asking. I think a similar question to the strategy planner is this one here. How do you come to consensus as a team to pick one strategy if team members have different ideas?
So what we do is when we plan out different launches, like into our small groups, we look and see how what everyone's different ideas were in the different groups that they were in. So then what we do is we come together and decide on a master strategy that we want to use for the season. So that's a way that everyone's ideas are heard. So they might have an idea to put something in one launch, and then someone has an idea to put a mission in that same launch. Then you can also combine different missions to make a set launch or a set strategy for the season.
I also think this can sort of answer LMCD's question about how you can incorporate it into your engineering notebook, because each team member can create their own drawing and strategy, and you can put all of those different strategies into your engineering notebook. And then what Sanjay and I did on our team is we would take the best parts of each strategy and we would show our final strategy and how it evolved over the season. And so we'd put all the different team member strategies in and what part we took out of each.
While we're still talking about the strategy, I do have one question for you guys. How do you communicate your strategy to judges? Because it is an important part of the rubric.
So one of the things that we had done in the previous year is when I talked about the yarn, when you use different colors of yarn for different launches, and then you can put together and match the strategy. What you can do is you can bring that into judging, and then you can actually show them that the robot strategy and the routes you're taking at that tournament.
Yes, that is an excellent way to show how you develop your strategy. Also, while we're at it, keep in mind that it is a good idea to have. It is okay to have your strategy changed throughout the season, because you do not need to be stuck only using that one strategy you developed at the beginning. Your strategy will evolve as your robot evolves and your programming, and as you continue programming your robot.
Right. So we have another question in chat as well. How do sensors factor in decisions about which missions you attempt? And I'll show a picture of the field again that might help to answer that question.
So if there's a mission that has like a lot of lines on there, you could use a color sensor and follow the lines all the way out. Or if there's somewhere that you can touch against a wall with a touch sensor, you could base that on a mission.
So walls, lines, are there anything else that you can use to make sure that you're more reliable? And
so on your attachments, you can have something that can follow along the wall, and that will help be consistent too.
okay, what other sensors do you use other than the color and the touch sensor?
So you can use the gyro sensor. That will help your missions be a lot more accurate.
Yeah, I think that the gyro sensor probably doesn't matter as much for which missions you attempt, since you can use that anywhere on the field. So I agree that probably the color sensor, there's a lot of lines this year, and using the touch sensor on walls, and also you can use them on mission models as well. So mission models, walls, and lines can help you decide which missions you decide to complete. Okay, do we have any other questions? So we have a question. Do you use the same base model every year, or do you change it according to your game strategy every year?
We do change it to the game strategy every year because if, say, I remember 2 years back, our robot was massive and huge, and that just would not have worked last year for how small and compact the board was that year. So we do change it every year.
I think that also helps you come up with different ways of building a robot, and it's also a great learning experience as well.
We have another question. How many missions would you recommend for a rookie team?
We would recommend 1 to 3 missions because if you were to do more, it might get you flustered, frustrated, and you might not do as well as you did if you just started simple. And if you were to get those missions completed, you could definitely build off those.
Yes, I think you can start off small, but then work your way bigger. If you finish those missions, go ahead and try some more.
I would also recommend a rookie team to start doing the missions closest to base first, like the four-ish missions that are close to base, and then if you get those done, it is a good idea to start trying to get to make your robot navigate to further areas of the board. But if you don't, that's okay. You're just starting out. That is always a goal that you can reach for next year. Okay. Remember, everyone, that feel free to ask any questions you have for the team in the chat on YouTube. We have just a couple minutes left in this webinar.
So I do have a question. Why do you think it is important to have a strategy before you just begin to start building and programming?
So it's important to have a strategy just before you start building and programming, because if you just start building and programming, you might make a mistake and that can set you back. So if you use the tools like the Score or the FLO Strategy Planner, you can actually set goals for how many points you want to get based on the total amount that you find that you can get, or you can plan out your launches, which will help. So if you have to make a change, if something's not working out, you don't have to restart and you can just continue on.
I think it also helps you plan out what kind of attachments you would need where. And so if you would need like 2 attachments in the same place for one run, they might conflict with each other. You can figure that out as well, which sets of attachments and missions would go well together. So it looks like we have no more questions in chat. So I'm going to head and bring this webinar to a close. If you come up with any more questions, you can always contact the Tiger Techs with their information that they provided you earlier. Thanks to StreamYard for sponsoring this webinar series. And thank you to Sharon Tiger Tech's Team Black for joining us today.
And thank you to all of you for watching this webinar session. Remember to tune in next Saturday for the next webinar at noon Eastern Time.
Bye, everyone.